Hi guys, me again, the Human Reviews guy. Today I will do a long overdue review of the Neyman, got the mic cable, of the Neyman Galahad feather. So I took a very long time to review this feather for several reasons. One of them is I was buried in work, so I didn't have a lot of time. And the other was I couldn't quite decide what to make of this sword, because one day I loved it, the other day it just didn't feel right, it didn't sit right for me, and it just kept going back and forth and back and forth, and I couldn't really decide if I liked the sword or if I didn't like it. It was always somewhere in between, between me actually completely loving the shit out of the sword and thinking it's not the right sword for me, which is a very interesting thing to say about a sword, and I'll explain why I had this feeling, because I had a lot of time to think about it and analyze it. So first off, let's go through the basic data that you need to know about the sword. First off, the complete length is 132 centimeters, the blade length is 99 centimeters, which means that the handle is about 32-ish centimeters. The point of balance is on this one at about 9 centimeters with a weight of only 1350 grams. So it's a very light, very agile sword. Going on from that, it has all the right vibrational and rotational nodes. So I hope you will be able to see this. So, whoop, god dang it. The forward rotational is exactly on the point, which is, in my opinion, the best place to have it. The vibrational nodes are here at about a third of the blade, again, which is standard for swords and a good standard at that, and this one is about here. So right where the heel of my hand rests when I comfortably grip the sword, which is also good because it keeps the vibrations from going into the hand, a little bit at least. So, one more thing for the stats, the press weight. So how much weight you actually need to press it. And this one is very flexible. In fact, you only need 8.5 kilograms for it to start flexing. And to get it to a full flex, you need 10.6 kilograms for this particular one. So if I want to fully flex it, that means about this. I can do it with my hands, no problem. And it doesn't actually hurt my hand or anything. So it's a very, very flexible sword, and that is the main issue I actually have with it. Because it feels too flexible for my tastes. I like slightly stiffer, let's say medium stiffness blades. For example, the stiffer Againies for me are too stiff, but the medium ones are actually just right if they have the white point. So let's say the Againia Eternivas. Otherwise, this sword is great. It's very well made. I like the Fuller makes it for a good blade in terms of the weight distribution. So the weight is distributed superbly, in my opinion. I really like what they did with the point. The point is it's a full point, so it doesn't just roll back, it actually thickens, it's a thickened point, and it's very comfortable to stab people with, and be stabbed with, of course, which is something that I find very important in sword fighting. So it makes it great for practicing a lot of thrust, because it's easy on your opponent. The crossguard and the handle do flow one into the other very nicely. However, the crossguard does tend to rattle. Then again, so far I think I've had one sword that didn't rattle, and this one also bends back very easily. So this is about 3 weeks worth of trainings of it not being straightened. This is a mild steel crossguard, so you can just hammer it back and not be afraid of it breaking because it isn't hardened. But I think it does contributes to the rattly nature of the crossguard. So it took about, I think it took about 4 months for it to start rattling, thereabouts, let's say. And there is one more thing. In heavy thrusts, the blade will take a set. It's relatively easy to straighten, and it doesn't happen all the time. It happens in heavier thrusts, so you won't have to go like do just an exchange, straighten the blade, do an exchange, straighten the blade. On average, I have to straighten it once or twice a training, and we do a lot of sparring. So that's, I guess it's fine. Also, the steel used, which is, I believe, a 5160 equivalent, or was it 6150? I have to check. In any case, very high quality steel that can be bent back into shape several times and still be fine. I really like what they did with the handle because it's a very narrow handle. I really like narrow handles. I hate the big bulky handles where my hand can barely grip around it, and most people seem to share my my point of view here. Also, the grip material is very nice, both the cord and as well on the inside. I don't think it's wood. It feels like plastic, and I am very happy about that because plastic should be a lot more durable than wood is, if it's high quality plastic, which I think it is. The pommel is also very comfortable to grip. It's basically a scent stopper pommel. It's not faceted or anything, but it does help your hand from sliding down because it has a little bit of an edge. So that's it for the basic statistics. Now comes the subjective experience with the sword. As I said, I still can't decide whether I love the sword or if it's just not right for me. Now, I think it's on the very edge of being too flexible, and I think that will be true for most people. Like, if you're a person who likes having more flexible sword, then go for it. What I do have to say is that this sword is extremely fast and maneuverable. So it's very easy to continue your strikes, to just flow into them, to do quick snappy motions as well as full strikes. So definitely a well-designed sword. However, again, sometimes, because it is so flexible, the blade will bend when you don't want it to. This is most noticeable when you defend, and you don't defend completely on the edge. And because the blade will bend, you can kind of feel like this springy effect, and your blade will basically bounce, throwing your form off just by that 1%. So it's nothing majorly drastic or bad. However, it is noticeable in a lot of cases. That being said, when I feel the sword, like when I get into it, I love it. I love to use it. Of course, against heavier swords, it will be more difficult to do most of the Meisterhauen, such as the Schielhau or the Zwerghau, because you have less mass to move the opponent's sword, but it makes up for that in the quickness of the follow-up strikes. Overall, I will give this sword I think I'm gonna give it a 9 for handling, just because, actually let's make that an 8.5 for handling because of the flex issue, so because of the whiplash, and because sometimes it bends when you don't want it to bend. For its safety, I give it a 10, actually I give it a 9 because the crossguard could be a little bit better done, because these sharp edges aren't filed down, so they're just sharp, and they do need to be filed down a little bit. So I give it a 9. Otherwise, it's great, safety-wise. Everything is nice and soft. These edges have a bit of a shoulder to them. The pommel is also very rounded. The ends of the crossguard, even though they're not thickened here, are kind of rounded, so they're also not the best, but fine. I think 9 is a good grade for this sword as far as safety goes. And for miscellaneous, I'm not sure. I'm gonna give it, for miscellaneous, I'm gonna give it like a 7, because it doesn't look very good. It rattles. Well, most swords do rattle, but this one also bends back a lot. And there are a couple of sharp edges which weren't filed down that I think they could have been. So I'm gonna give it a 7. Overall, for the price, which is 330 euros, what do you get? The main selling point of this sword, in my opinion, is that you get an extremely light, fast and agile sword that still has blade presence. Of course, it doesn't have the blade presence in the same way that the Zwerghau would, that has a very heavy blade that you can just plow through your opponent, but it has blade presence in the sense that you can feel where your point is. The weight distribution is very nicely distributed throughout the sword and to the point. That's what the fuller does. It lets you feel where the front end of your sword is, which is why the sword is actually also a lot more expensive than most of them. And it seems to be surprisingly durable in the blade because one of my main sparring partners uses a Ternova. I think it's the middle Ternova, so Ternova Light, which is 1650 grams, pretty stiff. And this blade can take that one with no difficulty at all. There are no deep notches in the blade. So the quality of the make is extremely high. If I would have to do like a quality of the make of the blade, just of the blade, I think it would pass as a 10 out of 10. The crossguard could use a little more work though. So overall, I'm gonna give this sword an 8.5 out of 10. It is a wonderful sword, and you can bring this grade up to 9.5 if this is your type of sword. If you like fast, light swords that you can do very quick follow-up strikes with, this is the sword that should catch your attention. But it isn't a sword if you're used to going a lot for the fore and binding the opponent's blade, or in any way making a lot of contact and forcing the opponent's blade away. This is not the best sword for that. Also, if you're a very stabby type, this is a good blade because of the flex. So if those things sound appealing to you, then you can definitely give it a 9.5 grade. I will see how long it will last. I do expect to get about 2 years worth altogether out of it before it breaks. It could probably be used longer if it was used against light swords, but this is the lightest sword that in my club, so everybody else has heavier swords, and of course it will take the toll on the most flexible light sword there is. If you like the Regeni standard faders, the light ones, you know, the really fast, agile ones, this is basically an upgraded, flexier version of that sword. That's pretty much it, what I have to say about this. I hope you find this review useful. I try to be as frank and as sincere. Full disclosure, this sword was bought with my own money. I paid what was at the time full price, which was 300 euros, because it was a kind of a discount, 10% discount, because they had a new website or something. But it was paid full price, and these are my full thoughts, unedited in any way. Again, I hope you find this useful, and until next time, have a good one.